Oh, you guys are so excited. I'm on a roll today and I feel like sharing some things. Some days, weeks, I don't feel like sharing. And today I felt like sharing. So, welcome to my TED Talk. Coffee, let's go. Okay, this video, I want to talk about public versus private trusts. It is a misconception that just because the trust was created by me, you, a non-statutory agent, meaning not a lawyer or an attorney, that the trust is private, and that's false. Let's talk about why and what makes a trust private. This is not statutory versus non-statutory. I am talking about public versus private and public facing versus public. Okay, there's some nuances here. What is public facing versus public versus private? Okay, there's really three things. A public trust is going to be recorded on the county somewhere. It's going to be searchable in a public database. Oftentimes, estate planners, estate attorneys will tell you to go record, or they will record your estate plan on the county record. Well, that sucks, but that's what they do. Okay. It sucks because now you're letting everyone know who is going to be receiving an inheritance. And I will tell you, I know this firsthand, that oftentimes attorneys, other actors, okay, not necessarily attorneys and lawyers, but predators, let's call it what it is, they comb public databases, they comb county records, and they look for, guess what? Estate plans, wills that have been recorded by an attorney or somebody who didn't know that they shouldn't do that. That's a truly public trust, okay? A public facing trust is one that is kind of in the middle. It's kind of in this gray area, in this limbo, where it operates in commerce. It acts as a bridge entity, okay? If I receive money and I want to move it into the private, okay, depending on where that money originated from. I was going to say origin. Depends on where that money's origin is. Where did that money, that fiat, come from? We know it's not true currency, so let's not get into that debate. But where did that fiat money come from? Where did it originate? It is going to go into a public-facing trust, okay? A living trust that is set up properly. It should be set up properly with the living man or woman, sui juris, living man, living woman, as the grantor, living man, living woman, sui juris, as the trustee, and you have your beneficiary of that set up properly, which is an irrevocable trust, not a U.S. person. Okay, so you have a couple of things in there. That would be, in my opinion, a properly set up living trust that can act as a bridge entity to receive assets, okay, from the public. It's a bridge, right? It's like the gateway. We have to cross the bridge somehow to get to the other side. How do we get things to the other side? When I say things, I mean assets. I don't care if it's gold, silver, art, automobile, whatever. a piece of property. How do we get it to the other side? We use a bridge, a public-facing living trust. It collects the assets, if you will, and then from there, you as fiduciary get to decide who you want to steward, how you're going to steward those assets. Are you going to put them in another trust? Are you going to put them in an irrevocable trust? Are you going to put them in a revocable trust? How do you want those assets stewarded? All of that can be decided once they get into this public-facing trust. If the trust has a bank account or an EIN number, possibly not the EIN number, and I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not that would make a trust like a public-facing trust. Some would argue yes. I would argue that if the trust has an EIN number, that it is at least known to a public entity. Does it truly operate in commerce? If it has a bank account, yes. Okay, so I have an irrevocable trust. It has an EIN number. It does not have a bank account. It operates as the managing member for an LLC. Why do I have that? Well, because first of all, I don't want to put the all caps name the US person because it's too easy to get trapped into joinder when you're using the all caps name in any fashion, even though it just gets tangled. It just is totally tangled, and it's not where I personally want to end up. There's a time and a place for it. I'm not saying there isn't. However, if at all possible, I would like to use another entity as the managing member, try not to mix my words up here, as the managing member of that entity. So that when I have to fill out the statement of beneficial owner, it's not the US person. Okay, it's definitely not me, and it's not the US person that's going on there. It's another entity. But that irrevocable trust does not have a bank account, and it operates solely for the purpose of being the managing member, the sole member of that LLC. Okay, this is what I talk about. This is what I'm referring to when I talk about utilizing these entities to achieve what we need to achieve. That was a tangent, and I totally forgot where I was at before that. Public and private facing trusts. So technically, that entity, that irrevocable trust, has to have an EIN number, because in order for it to be a beneficial owner per the IRS, it has to have an EIN number. Does it have a bank account though? No. So that irrevocable trust that has an EIN number fulfills the IRS requirements to be a beneficial owner without stepping into the water, into the commercial waters too much, right? So there's kind of this gray area, like that could be a public facing trust. It still might be a private trust. I don't really know. However, the living trust has an EIN and it has a bank account. Okay. The irrevocable trust that I have set up for my kids, okay, my son and daughter, that has, it's non-statutory, but it is still public facing in the way that it has a bank account. Because I want it to receive monies from the living trust. I want it to, it is the beneficiary. So the whole private trust is an interesting